So my question to you is, what happened to you? Because as a business owner, you have had so many businesses and so many employees. You have to have had people that got arrested. How does it affect you as a business owner?
Yeah, I mean, one person in particular I can think of, they were one of a key person in our company. They did all of our marketing, all of our back end stuff, built all of our websites, and if something went down or something needed to be updated, they had to be there. And they got into some substance abuse and some alcohol abuse and things like that. They had a history of it, but then they were sober for years, and they kind of got back had some family issues, got back into the substance abuse, and they basically got arrested and got into the system, and that basically they had a family, they were doing well, had bought a home, and then got into the system, and just from there just spiraled downward. It hurt our company because we couldn't keep up with the updates, we couldn't do what the vendors wanted us to do as far as the website goes. Our marketing went down, a lot of different things happened, so it really affected the company. And as far as, obviously we're paying taxes, we're a local business, we're hiring people, we actually had to lay some people off because we weren't able to keep the marketing going. So it really affected the business, and that's a downward spiral across the board.
What was the personal impact on the person as different from the personal impact that on you as a businessman? Because who talks about this in business? Nobody talks about this in business, and most people are ashamed, or we don't want to talk because it's verboten. So what is it about having somebody arrested in the company that affected you? And how did it affect your company?
Affected not just financially, but it was. I had to go. Eventually, I had to start picking him up because they put him in like a house where they would release him. Work release program. So we had to come in and sign paperwork and sign. We had to agree to pay. He either had to pay or we had to pay a fine every week, or I guess it was every week. I think it was taken out weekly to pay for the work release program. And he had to be back there at a certain time, and we had to keep the specific hours. And he couldn't get a ride there by someone. It had to be someone specifically that picked him up. So I had to go there and pick him up at a specific time and drop him off at a specific time every day.
Why were you willing to do that?
Because obviously he was a key person, and I felt bad for him, his family, and I wanted to make sure he can get back on his feet and continue to work and make money for his family. So.
And when you had to go back and forth, did you have to pay? Well, obviously it takes work time out of your life, and if you're the person in charge, did you then incur liability? Did you have to buy different insurance? Did all those things start to add up, and did it cost you money?
Oh yeah, I mean obviously time and gas and everything else, and taken away from my family life, having to make sure I picked him up at a certain time and dropped him off. It was obviously a real inconvenience for a period of time. And then we were also liable if he didn't show up or left during the middle of the day or something happened. We had to make sure he was there. Sheriff's department would come by and check. They could do spot checks.
At your office?
Yeah, dealing with police coming in on spot checks.
How did that affect your staff?
It was it was intimidating for sure.
And it probably affected anybody who's scared of police or anybody who's ever had to. I mean, that's got to be scary also for the neighbors that are. I mean, you're in business,
right? And
you got cops coming in and out of your business all the time,
right?
So talk to me about how it affected you. Did you ever have to pay the bail? How did he get bailed? Did you have to deal with any of the
we had to pay
vendors?
the bail. I had to pay the bill. I had to probably 2 or 3 times on different occasions for different instances.
And that cost you a lot of extra money, right?
Right.
So why did you do this? Because it's a real inconvenience, and it was expensive, and it cost you a lot as an employer. But why did you do this? Why did you help him?
I mean, he had some substance abuse, had some family issues. I felt we could get through it and get him back on board and get him back productive, and make sure he can provide for his family and help the business at the same time. So I just felt like I had to help him out. He was a friend of mine too. Before we hired him, I knew him just in other circles, and I just always had. He is a very brilliant person. So I saw a lot in him, and a lot of obviously his family. I saw a lot of potential in him as far as a business person and helping our business, and possibly even becoming a business partner at some point. So.
And weren't we dealing with some? I mean, didn't this arrest thing trigger post-traumatic stress or complex post-traumatic stress, and didn't that accelerate and get worse as time went on?
Yeah, I mean, he ended up, he lost his wife, his family wasn't able to come around anymore. There's just a lot of trauma that took place, and from that point, he started using more substances after this. It just didn't even get better, it got worse.
Because there was no way to get him out of the system.
Right.
As I recall, it just got worse and worse, and it just compounded, and we couldn't get it traction.
Right.
Couldn't get it back. And from a business standpoint, it also was expensive because he was high intellectual capital person. I mean, like
Right.
he was a real asset to you.
Right.
Didn't it force you to have to actually change your entire business practices or?
Yeah, actually, we
Your
ended
model?
up taking some of our business outside of the country. We obviously want to keep the business here. We had to take, because what he created was actually a lot of the developers, we went to 2 or 3 different developer groups and they couldn't figure it out or help us fix it.
Wow.
So we ended up having to go out of the country to get it fixed.
So this was a high capital loss for you.
Right, for sure.
One of the things that I discovered is that this issue of incarceration, it's not all about the criminal, which is so much of what the story is that we're talking about. And what actually happens is it affects the individual family, it affects the person, it affects the bosses, it affects all the people in the circle around it. It affected your business from an even bigger and bigger and bigger field. And I know that when I talked with you about this, it caused me to really pay attention to the ripple effects and the hidden ripple effects. And so we make these judgments, let's get that guy off the street or whatever. But he didn't belong in a maximum security place. What he really needed was a reentry and a job reskilling, and he needed some personal coaching, and he needed some mentorship, and maybe he needed some help with the post-traumatic stress and the trauma that he was dealing with. Because as you start dealing with the loss of reputation, you start dealing with loss of credit cards and loss of standing in community and loss of relationships in the business, as well as loss of relationships everywhere. And so everything melts down. And we can't afford that anymore. And small businesses take it harder even than large corporations where they can just absorb it, move somebody else over. You as a small businessman, he was a rare commodity. Yeah, the bottom line is we can fix this. I mean, working together as a community and talking with people and understanding the differences, we can tackle this. We can help people get back to work. We can do mentoring. We can do navigation. We can do family reconciliation. We can do restorative justice. It doesn't have to cost this much, and we don't have to break the bank with businesses and families. We can change it.
I was thinking you have a public defender that's assigned to you when you get into the system. Why don't you have someone assigned to you when you get out of the system? They can help you. That's an advocate for you to get back on track.
That's why we need people like you talking to people like
And
me.
it can coordinate with the employers
That's
and,
right.
and the business people. I've got a person on my client I'm working with. We want to get them back hired and working again. We're going to be their advocate and work with you to make sure they're successful. So
That's why we need
like
you on
that.
the Citizens Commission that I want to create. We want to have a citizens oversight program, and we want to start actually working with people compassionately to help them get their feet back under them, because your guy didn't want to go down. He didn't want to mess up. He wanted to do it right. That's why he was stressed out in the first place.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so help him get a hand up. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.